And so it is to the printing press, to the recorder of man's deeds, the keeper of his conscience, the courier of his news, that we look for strength and assistance, confident that with your help, man will be what he was born to be, free and independent.
Welcome to Odd Reality Radio, the show designed to generate thought through entertainment. Join us as we explore the strange and unexplained, the unanswered and the unbelievable on Odd Reality Radio.
An error doesn't become a mistake until you refuse to correct it.
Welcome to Odd Reality Radio. I'm your host, Ty West, and on today's show, we'll talk with author, playwright, and ufologist Ryan Sprague about a few projects he's working on at the moment, including a new book due out next year. We also discuss the Rendlesham Forest Incident and wrap it up with a fun review of Guardians of the Galaxy. Disclaimer, some spoilers may be present. Stick around for this and much more on Odd Reality Radio. Now, I'd like to thank Ryan for taking time out of his schedule twice to do this interview with us. And next, I'd like to apologize for the echo track on the recording. I managed to somehow record it with 2 room mics on accident, and it sounds somewhat like I'm in the future. In fact, just disregard everything I just said about making a mistake. This is an interview I did from the future with Ryan Sprague. Thanks again, Ryan. We're here today with Ryan Sprague. He's an active UFO journalist, an author, and consultant to several major cable television shows. He has written for several publications, including Open Minds Magazine, Phenomena Magazine UK, UFO Truth Magazine, and Examiner.com. How are you, Ryan?
I'm doing fantastic, Ty. How you doing, man?
I'm doing much better this time around. I let the listeners know we've actually already recorded this once, but technical difficulties got the best of me.
Oh, you and me both, brother. Definitely.
It happens.
Yeah, but, that's technology for you.
Well, yeah, absolutely. And so I went a little bit more conventional route. We got it hardwired in, going old school. No chance of losing it this time.
Isn't that funny how old school is always the most
reliable? For sure.
Yeah. There's something to be said about that, for sure.
Absolutely, and I think that's why I'm a little bit old school myself. Anytime I can go old school or old-fashioned, I'd like to.
Yep, anytime I can bring an old typewriter into a coffee shop, I'm set.
I'd like to see that.
I'm not that guy, I promise.
Well, tell us a little bit about yourself, Ryan. To start, where are you located?
I'm located right in New York City, actually. I've been here for about 6, going on 7 years now. I'm originally from the upstate New York area, Syracuse, New York, and moved to the Big Apple to pursue my dreams, acting, writing, everything in between. Always been on more of the artistic side, and what better place, man?
Absolutely. Excellent. Yeah. Well, now, most people that I know that become passionately involved in any area of the paranormal, whether it's, ghost hunting, cryptozoology, ufology, metaphysics, or any area of the fringe, a large number, if not pretty much everybody that I've run into, has seemed to have a profound personal experience, some sort of first-hand experience. Have you ever had a profound experience? Is that what sparked your interest in ufology?
Great question. Yes, I have. I had a sighting when I was 11 years old, and this was in the upstate area, off of Lake Ontario, almost bordering Canada. And I was out fishing one night, and I sort of looked off into the distance, it was completely silent that night. All you could hear was like the small ripples of waves hitting the dock where I was fishing. And I saw these 3 distinct points of light off into the distance, very bright white lights in a triangular formation. And, of course, I thought it was a plane, but again, even at 11, my perception is starting to become more keen, and I'm noticing that there's no sound. There's absolutely no sound where this thing was coming from. And it actually started to get closer and closer and closer to me. And I kind of freaked out, man. I backed out. I reeled in my fishing pole, and this thing was just hovering silently over the water. I could actually see its reflection in the water, and that's when I noticed that this wasn't just lights. It was whatever it was a structured craft. When I looked up at it, I could not see the stars behind it, and then it just sort of darted off, and whether it went off into the distance or possibly into the water, I'll never know. But yeah, man, it was ultimately the profound thing that set me on this journey to explore the UFO phenomenon. After that, I went to the library and started taking out book after book on the topic, and a fear definitely turned into intrigue, into curiosity, and ultimately an obsession.
Absolutely. That sounds like a healthy direction to go in, if you ask me.
I hope so.
Well, about how long did this whole event take?
It felt like seconds. Again, when your perception of reality changes in an instant, you're just sort of left there and just trying to make any sense of what's going on. Right. I'm trying to yell for my parents who are inside of our hotel at the time, and nothing's coming out. And I'm trying to look around to see if anyone else is around, and no one's around. And then you're left there by yourself with this profound thing happening. And I couldn't tell you. I couldn't tell you how long it lasted. But, the next morning I told my parents what had happened, and, they sort of shrugged it off. It was a plane. It was this. Your imagination is running wild. But
right. At 11, it's easy to dismiss something like that.
Oh, of course, and I don't blame them. I myself was trying to find any semblance to what had happened, I was only 11 at the time, but yeah, right. You try to make sense of it. And again, it could have been anything, but it definitely was something very important and integral that happened in my life.
Well, I remember reading a couple of articles of yours in which you interviewed musicians, and I remember that we're both fans of Blink-182, and recently Tom DeLonge posted a photo of almost exactly what you described. Was it the same color or shape? Did you see that video, by the way?
I did, man. I got I got shivers when I saw his video. Very, very similar. It was a whitish, sort of yellowish tint to what I saw. Tom's video, it seemed almost like a fleet of these things.
Yeah.
Yeah, what I saw was a singular craft, if you will. But I have since looked into a lot of triangular sightings, and unlike most UFO sightings, these triangular crafts seem to be very, very similar, if not identical. So whenever I do find other triangular cases, immediately I attach myself to them. There's a great book that just came out called Triangular UFOs by David Marler, who's a MUFON investigator.
Right.
And I am just eating this book up. I met him not too long ago, and we just talked for hours, man. It was incredible. And he was so excited to hear about my case, and now it's setting him on a new path to start to look for more of these sightings in the upstate New York area, where we had a lot of them back in the 1980s in Hudson Valley. And sort of reinvigorated his journey and my own too.
Excellent. Well, I remember reading about a play that you're currently writing or have written about the incident at the Rendlesham Forest. Can you tell us a little bit about this?
Sure. We always take for granted that our listeners know about these cases.
Right.
So, I always like to give a little brief overview of the case because it is very complex, and unlike most, it took place over 3 separate nights. This took place back in 1980 in Suffolk, England. There were 2 joint military bases owned by the U.S. over in England during the Cold War, the bases being Bentwaters Air Force Base and its sister base, RAF Woodbridge. And in between these bases was a forest called Rendlesham Forest. And over the course of 3 nights in 1980, there were strange lights being reported by the flight tower operators on the base and also by civilians in the area. So word sort of started to spread around the bases that UFOs were being tracked. They were being tracked on radar. They were being seen in the skies. And so people started to go out and investigate. It sort of escalated the second night. There were 2 officers, James Peniston and John Burroughs, who went out into the forest and actually witnessed a downed craft, if you will. Now, downed, I don't necessarily mean crashed. Whatever it was, it seemed to have landed in the forest. And these 2 men went out, and Jim actually touched the craft. He went up to it. He said it was warm to the touch. It was a glassy, sleek feel to it.
Didn't he say that there was some type of hieroglyphics or some sort of unique writing?
Yes, yeah. I guess when officers approach a craft, the first thing they're told to look for is symbols to see where this thing might be from. You know, at that time, we had many enemies. And they thought it might be Russian. And he did notice these symbols on the craft. And when he got closer and closer, he noticed, this isn't Russian. This isn't anything from the Middle East. This was, it seemed to him like hieroglyphics. So right then and there, you're wondering what is something of such ancient refuse doing in the forest?
Right.
And at this point, there was a bright white flash of light and missing time. John Burroughs, the other officer, doesn't remember anything. He blacked out. The last thing he remembers seeing is the craft shooting up into the air and disappearing, whereas James had a entirely different experience and supposedly had this binary code of such downloaded into his brain. He wrote down all these 1s and 0s in his notebook. He wrote down what he saw, and very dramatic. The third night of events, if you can believe it, was even more dramatic. Another craft landed in the forest, and Larry Warren, who was a security police officer on the base, was brought out into a field called Capel Green with other officers and was told to approach this craft to see what it might be. And Larry, along with 40 other officers, witnessed a triangular craft that was landed in the forest, and Larry states that he saw what he perceived as small children in the forest. So immediately, him and the other officers are wondering, what are kids doing in this forest? This is a highly sensitive military area.
Right.
Closer they got, they realized that they were not children. They seemed to be these almost iridescent, opaque, sort of floating figures. Larry was pulled back at this point, told to go back to base, and the next morning he was debriefed on the incident, and many other officers were as well by the Office of Naval Intelligence, and they were told that these things happen. Different civilizations travel to our planet from time to time, and they were told that if they ever spoke about what they saw, that quote-unquote bullets are cheap. And
Larry wrote a book about this, co-authored with Peter Robbins, correct?
That's correct, yes. It took about 10 years for Larry to come forward about what he saw, and he wanted to write a book, the definitive book on the incident. He did not want to remain silent about it. He was the first whistleblower to come forward about the Rendlesham Forest incident. He broke the story, and he co-authored a book with Peter Robbins, the famous UFO researcher, and it took them 10 years to research and write the book, Ty, and I can tell you, man, this book is over 500 pages long, but it is a quick read if this is a topic you're interested in.
Right,
and
absolutely.
A dramatic read as well.
It's got transcripts of actual, conversations that was there. I've actually got a copy. I haven't quite dipped into it as much as I'd like yet, but are they hypnotic regressions?
There are. There's hypnotic regressions, I believe, from Larry in the book. There's also audio conversations that Peter had both with Larry and with Colonel Charles Halt, who was the base commander at the time of the incident. Some of your listeners may also know that there is audio tape of what happened that night as it was happening by Colonel Charles Halt. This tape was leaked to the public through Freedom of Information Acts by the hand of Larry Warren, again, the whistleblower on the entire event. And all of this started to come forward, and there's no denying at this point that something happened out there. And those tapes can be found over the internet, and very startling. You can hear these men in the background explaining what they're seeing as Colonel Charles Halt is giving literally a play-by-play of what he was witnessing. He witnessed these craft floating over the bases and shining down beams of light over the bunkers of the base where, unbeknownst to Britain, the U.S. was housing nuclear ordnance at the time, which was completely against treaty. So therein lay the entire controversy behind this entire event of why it was kept silent when we had unidentified aerial objects over a highly sensitive base secretly housing nuclear weapons. It's just ripe with drama, my man.
Absolutely. And the name of the book for the listeners is Left at East Gate.
Correct.
So everybody, I suggest go pick up a copy for yourself, because you won't be disappointed with the content in this book.
Mm-hmm.
Well, is it true that you're also working, aside from the play on this incident, you're also working on a screen adaptation of this story as well?
That's correct, yeah. I'm sort of working in tandem with the play. The play is going to cover the 10-year journey it took Peter Robbins and Larry Warren to write the book about the incident, whereas the short film tie is going to cover the incident itself through the eyes of Larry Warren. We're going to be doing that right here in New York, in the Long Island area. We found a field out on Long Island that is strikingly similar to that of Rendlesham Forest. You know, it's got the big metal gates with the barbed wire, and it's perfect. It's perfect. We hired a special effects artist to come in to create our craft. We got some amazing actors lined up, and I could not be more excited to not only be making this short film, but to to sort of set a precursor for the play, to give people an idea of what happens so that they have something propelling them into this 10-year journey of the play itself. So it's sort of mixing the mediums into something that I'm very passionate about, and that's the UFO topic. And to be able to mix my passions of theater and writing and UFOs, I could not be a happier writer right now. So yeah, man, very excited. We're hoping for about a late 2015 release of the short film, and hopefully the same for the play.
And you're one of the busiest people that I know in the field of ufology. I think, in fact, one of the only other person that comes to mind immediately that is as busy and productive as you is Nick Redfern, and another name just popped up too, and that's Micah Hanks. Now,
Oh, yes.
Speaking of books, you've got one coming out, don't you?
Yeah. I'm working on my first book right now with Richard Dolan, the UFO historian. He's been very integral in the publishing realm lately on the topic of UFOs. He just came out with a book himself not too long ago called UFOs in the 21st Century Mind, which is kind of a fresh take on the topic for a younger generation. And sort of in the same vein, I've been writing articles for a really long time, and I've been looking for something more, something to really give my own voice to. You know, with these articles, you have to be extremely objective and do it within a limited amount of space. But this is really my time to let loose and give my own thoughts on the topic. And I could not be happier to be working with Richard Dolan on this book. And yeah, man, I'm very excited about the topic of what I'm covering, and could not be happier to be working with such a force in the field of ufology.
Now, is this book going to cover Rendlesham, or is it going to be an entirely different subject matter?
Entirely different. I do cover Rendlesham briefly in the first chapter, where I sort of go over some historical cases to sort of get people, into the idea that there is already a core reality to this phenomenon. Now let's move past that. Let's really dive into it and look at what it might be. The book itself is going to dive into individual cases. I have a working title for the book right now, which is When Logic Fails, a Human Approach to an Alien Phenomenon. And I found that very apropos to what I'm trying to get to. I believe it was in one of Rich Dolan's books, actually, where he quotes Kurt Gödel, who was an Austrian logician. And he said that that basically there's these theorems that state that any set of logical rules, except those that are most simple, will contain statements that are undecidable, thus being neither proven or disproven. And Dolan sort of plays off of that, saying that any logical system with even the slightest complexity will inevitably become self-referential. So right there, I'm sort of tackling the whole idea of logic and what we consider logic in our own limitations, and how do we move past that, and how does the UFO phenomenon connect to that? So yeah, I'm covering a huge array of cases from around the world, some people coming forward for the very first time. And what I really want to tackle is the human aspect of it, Ty.
Absolutely.
Really getting to the core of the implication of it.
Right. I feel that translates in an emotional sense. When people are real, and that's something that for me as a reader, a researcher, and an interested person in the field, that is one thing that stands out to me with certain people's work is when they're completely honest with their own events, and what comes to mind is Communion by Whitley Strieber. That was actually the first book on ufology that I actually read. So.
Yeah, I believe it was one of the first for me as well. And that image on that book will forever be burned into my mind. A beautiful, beautiful image of what we now consider, the gray, if you will, and really opened up the doors for the abduction phenomenon and propelled the work of Bud Hopkins and David Jacobs and John Mack. And I will be covering the abduction phenomenon pretty heavily in the book, and really getting to the core of how these events affect people, whether it's socially, religiously, economically, sexually, psychologically. We spend so much time in this field focusing on the what, where, and the when, and I really want to tackle the who and the why, and what that might mean, and if there's any patterns, and if it could tell us anything about what we're dealing with, if I can even scratch the surface of that, I feel I've done my job.
Well, it sounds like an excellent topic and an excellent direction to be going in. It's something that I, in the research that I've done, it's an area that hasn't been tapped into enough yet. So I look forward to the release of the book. When do you think that'll be?
I am barreling through, my man, every day. I'm getting emails left and right about people who want to come forward, and that right there has made the entire thing worth it. That these people are willing to put their names in print. I am very specific in telling them that I will not use pseudonyms in the book. I want to put faces to the names of these people and show that everyday people are having these profound experiences. They're teachers, they're law enforcement, they're doctors, they're your next door neighbor, and that says something. The days of people, in the backwoods of South Carolina, and these images that we have in our head of who have these experiences. The assumptions, and presumptions aside, something's happening, and it's happening to everyone. Whatever this phenomenon is, it is not discriminating, and there's something to be said about that for sure.
Well, as far as the people that it happens to, it also happens to radio show hosts like myself. I actually was, when we released episode number 1, Joshua Ray and I actually took a trip out that next weekend to the Dugway area.
Yes.
Which some people may know as Area 52, which you've actually done an article with the guy I'm going out to work with at Comic-Con, Dave Rosenfeld, who, if anybody hasn't looked into his website and work, check it out, aliendave.com. You won't be disappointed.
I am a huge fan of Dave's work. I could not agree more. I was so honored to interview him for an article I did on possible next Area 51s. And trust me, man, you could not be any more right. Dugway is definitely up there with all the strange things that are going on there. I'd be very interested to hear about your experiences there.
Well, one of the experiences that we had a couple of little things happen. Now, Joshua Ray and I went out with the intention of having an experience. Obviously, people that are interested do. Now, we didn't expect anything to happen. At least on my end, I didn't at all. Well, we get out there, and unfortunately, we have this mix between cloud cover and clear and cloud cover and clear. So we're watching the airfield on the ground, as well as, when we get a break in the clouds. And throughout the night, we're having, a little bit of light here, a little bit of light there, and we look out on the test range, or on the actual airstrip, and we see these little balls of light that originally it looked almost like a really intense motorcycle headlight. And then as I watched it, and I'm looking through a telescope at this thing, so we're miles away. But this thing gets in more and more intense, and then it breaks into 3 equidistant lights that are a little less intense, but still bright enough to leave an impact. So this happens once or twice, and I'm telling Joshua, check this out. You got to check this out. So he looks in, and for about an hour this happened on and off. And there was at one time where 2 of these things on the ground are doing the same thing. It could have been 300 yards apart, but from my perception, it looked like it was maybe 50 feet or so apart, but they were bursting into these little triangles, or these little triangle formations of light. And then a little bit later on that evening, we were watching through a break in the clouds, and as I looked up, there was one of the stars that kind of appeared to be getting brighter and brighter. And as I noticed it growing in intensity, it kind of slid down a little bit in a diagonal pattern and began to zigzag, which, as far as I'm, as far as my experience goes, I've never seen a star do that. So I don't think it was a star, but we watched that for about 15 or 20 seconds. I pointed it out, and Josh said he saw it too. We watched it for, like I said, 15 or 20 seconds, and then it zipped off and was out of the line of sight. But that was a really incredible evening, and the reason that we didn't share immediately is because, we just started this podcast. We don't want to come out and be like, yeah, we had the most spectacular experience on episode number 2. So,
right, exactly. Like, how serendipitous, right?
Exactly.
That I just got shivers, man. And again, like that's the thing. When someone who has witnessed something like this does come forward and tells someone who's never had an experience, there's always that small glimmer of skepticism in the other person's eye. And,
right.
They're never going to have that visceral reaction that those who have had the experience will have. And I just got shivers listening to your story, only because it starts to bring up, memories of my event or feeling that I had during it. And you're completely vulnerable in that moment. Again, you're searching for anything to any prosaic thing to explain what's happening.
Absolutely. Searching for some definition to this odd reality.
Yeah, exactly. There you go right there, man. There's the reasoning for your show altogether.
Absolutely.
I find those things fascinating, and I have a chapter on orbs in the book as well. So I would definitely like to speak to you about possibly being in the book. So
absolutely, I'd love that.
Get your name in print, brother.
Oh, for sure. Now, the publisher of this book, like we mentioned, is a pioneer in the field, Richard Dolan. He's a gentleman. He's been one that's been really approachable, as well as Peter Robbins and Larry Warren, for that matter. Everybody that you've mentioned and we've discussed tonight, they're really approachable. That's one thing that I have to say. Being so new to this field, I feel really welcome, and I already feel, like you and I have a connection as if we've hung out 100 times. But this is the second time that we've even, spoken to each other. But I know that you've also worked with Peter and many other respectable researchers. Now, is there anyone in the field that you haven't yet worked with that you would really like to?
Oh, definitely. I definitely have my dream team. If I could go out, on a road show and investigate with. Let's see, who do I have? All across the world, man. There's Frederick Udall, who I was able to do a few interviews here in the city with. He's based out of Denmark. He works prominently with the Exopolitics Denmark group, and he's doing some amazing work out there on local cases, and really an advocate for bringing what the public knows to the government. The governments of the world aren't going to come forward and admit that they've either been lying about what they know or that they absolutely have no idea what is going on. So what's the safest bet to do? Just deny that anything's happening.
Absolutely.
So I'm a big fan of Frederick in that sense, of him trying to move this forward in his area. Another gentleman on the same vein would be Dr. Sanad Rashad out of Kuwait. He investigates a lot of cases in the Middle East and abroad, and really has a passion for that as well. Damien John Knott, who's based out of Sydney, Australia. I'll be featuring him in the book, and he's got some incredible cases out of Australia that he's working on. I mentioned earlier David Marler, who focuses on the triangular UFOs. Obviously, I have a personal attachment to that.
Absolutely.
But just a very passionate guy, and very articulate and detailed. And I would have to end with Colin Andrews, the crop circle investigator. Not something I'm huge into, the crop circle phenomenon. But again, I feel like we are moving forward in the field, and we have to be open to these new ideas. The days of nuts and bolts they're gone. They're gone. These are not metal, silver discs we're seeing anymore. There's something much more complex happening. And I do believe that the crop circle phenomenon has something to do with that. And Colin is definitely a pioneering investigator in that sense. So, yeah,
absolutely.
That is my international dream team of ufologists.
Well, what's interesting about that is I'm somebody that really likes to hear not so common names, and not that those common names are lesser researchers or anything, but I love a fresher idea, and that's why when you were mentioning off these names, I'm trying to write them down as quickly as I can because I'm interested as well. And
I'll get you a list.
Excellent. Oh, I appreciate that. Yeah, and you're the one that introduced me to a lot of the people in the field who, like I mentioned, have just been nothing but inviting and really approachable people. Everybody from Chase Koletsky, she's been really nice. Like we talked about, Micah Hanks, he's one of the people that inspired me to get this thing going. And his brother Caleb, who I'd also like to have on the show. These are people that I really admire their work and where they've come from. Tyler Pittman, he's been a helpful one. I'm really, really happy to hear more and new names, and that's something that I think that with this show I just would love to do, is to share more names with other people, help network, and get more like minds together, because I think that might be one of the more beneficial things. The more minds, working towards one healthy goal, the more likely we are to achieve that goal.
Exactly, and you bring up two really, really good points. One being the names you mentioned are all young researchers, which is very uncommon in this field. Whenever I go on radio shows and whatnot and tell people, I just turned 30 not too long ago, and they're like, wow, you're really young. And that just strikes me as odd that I'm, Micah or Caleb or you yourself and I are considered young in this field. It shouldn't be that way, but it is. But it's exciting as well. Getting the younger people involved in this topic is the only thing that's going to move it forward. And your other point being that we are sharing information. I feel with the UFO topic and the quote unquote study of ufology, sort of a self-proclaimed term we've made for ourselves. There's a lot of holding this information to the chest and saving it for quote unquote a rainy day, if you will, to almost give ourselves a sense of celebrity. There's a wonderful article that Micah Hanks recently wrote about in response to the death of ufology, and that nothing is really moving forward because we have these celebrities on TV talking about things that they have no idea what that they're talking about, and they're just faces. They're faces to a topic that we take very seriously. And I think one of the best points that Micah makes in the article is that the best work in this field is being done underground. It's being done by the silent people, the ones who are humble, the ones who are modest, the ones who are really, really digging into this complex phenomenon. But they're not shouting it to the masses on TV. They're not sensationalizing it. They're writing and they're researching and they're putting down what is happening. And I think that's what's most important and what is really going to give us an idea of what we might be dealing with and what will make the scientific community respect us and really look into it.
Well, and I think that another thing that is helpful is that we actually have some scientists like Thomas Fusco, and we've got more names of higher caliber that are taking an interest. And unfortunately, we've had a couple of researchers recently pass away. The Roger Lear and Lloyd Pye, unfortunately. But with those passing, like we mentioned, I think the youthful folks like ourselves, we're ready to take the reins. And I think that, like you said, the underground researchers that Micah mentioned, that the reason that they're the ones that are going to carry this torch is because they genuinely care about the content and not recognition. The humility that you mentioned is the more important thing. And the content, it's not about a celebrity. It's actually about making a difference for us as a group. I mean, we are an Earth community, but we just don't seem to think about it like that.
You make a good point, man. Yeah, when the celebrity outweighs the phenomenon, that is a problem. So yeah, we need more humble people and smart younger people like you and like Micah to come forward, and really exciting. And again, that's what's going to draw the attention of the scientific community. And like you said, I'm going to these UFO conferences, and there are astrobiologists there. There are physicists, and they are coming forward and saying, yes, there is life elsewhere. Now it's a matter of how do we find it, and what exactly is it, and what might it tell us about ourselves. So very exciting. We are moving forward very quickly in this topic, and there's a paradigm shift happening. And, you know, it's going to take patience. We may be moving quickly, but that doesn't mean, you know, that we're going to find the answer tomorrow.
Right.
We could find it centuries and centuries from now. But if we remain on this path that we are, I think we're headed in the right direction.
Absolutely. Yeah, and as long as we care about the quality of our questions, we'll always be given better answers for sure.
Yep, I cannot agree more.
Well, I believe I remember you also saying recently that you've become a writer for an A&E television show. Is there anything at all that you can share about this, or is it pretty much just a wait and see?
Oh, man. I don't want to breach my non-disclosure contracts.
Oh, please don't.
No, yeah, I was approached, I don't know, maybe like 6 months ago, by a gentleman at A&E Network about possibly doing some scripted reality work for their station. Not really my thing, but again, you know, a check's a check.
Absolutely.
But yeah, that sort of evolved into another writing project with them about a very, very familiar character in my eyes. I've always grown up loving Hitchcock, Vertigo being my all-time favorite movie.
Excellent.
And Psycho being up there as well.
You got good taste.
Yeah, thanks, man. I could tell you do as well. So yeah, I am very, very excited and beyond honored to be working on a character that is an icon in my eyes, and that is the character of Norman Bates. And that's really all I can say at this point. But yeah, check out A&E this upcoming season for some work of mine and the work of many other very talented writers on a very cool, hip, fresh show on a iconic character.
Excellent. I look forward to it. I'm also, like we mentioned, I'm a fan of Hitchcock as well. And one of the reasons I am is because my mom, when I was probably 4 years old, she would put stuff like that on, and The Twilight Zone, and I think Birds is one of the earliest memories of mine. And so I've been a fan. And speaking of film, and also, the fact that I'm on my way out the door to the Salt Lake Comic-Con, would you care to share a review on the movie Guardians of the Galaxy? Because I remember us discussing recently that we were both going to go see it.
Yeah. Oh, are you kidding me, man? Yeah, I'd love to. I got to see it on my birthday, actually, which was a dream come true. Going to see a comic book movie for my 30th birthday.
Absolutely. And I was right there with you, and unfortunately I didn't go on my birthday, but that's just because my birthday's the day after yours.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, that says so much about us, doesn't it?
I think so. Absolutely. The singularity, man.
Yeah, we are star brothers. I absolutely loved it. I'm a huge comic book fan. I've recently gotten much more into Marvel comics, but I have always been a huge Batman fan, and I never really knew what the heck Guardians of the Galaxy was. So I did not have any interest in seeing the movie until I saw the preview, and I went and I was just blown away, man. It was unlike anything Marvel's done up to this point. Very stylized, very, very funny. And Chris Pratt just killed it.
I agree.
I'm a huge fan of Parks and Rec, and the guy's hilarious. Can he carry a movie? I wasn't sure, but he was amazing as Star-Lord. I thought it was perfect. And from those first moments, where he's dancing on this deserted plain of a planet.
That's where I was hooked to. The minute that he put those headphones on and kicked his foot out, it didn't stop from there.
Yeah. It set the tone for the entire movie moving forward, and I was immediately like, okay, I know where I'm at. I know what I'm to expect, and I loved it. The whole cast was incredible. Bradley Cooper as Rocket and freaking Batista. Let's see, who else was in it? Oh, Vin Diesel,
yes.
Zoe Saldana. They were all amazing. They were just this ragtag group, and it sort of reminded me of Firefly.
I was just about to say that, and strictly for the chemistry. Absolutely, the chemistry of those actors, and the way that they interacted with each other really translated into the final product.
Yep. Bringing this ragtag group together and making them a team. And they each had their own sort of individualism, to themselves. And that's what really made them a team. And I loved it, man. It really felt like, and I know we have some new Star Wars movies coming up with J.J. Abrams, but it felt like a brand new Star Wars for a new generation.
You're not the first person to say that, actually. Yeah. I've heard somebody else mention how they felt that they haven't had that much fun since the original Star Wars film came out. And I have to admit it, I have not had that much fun in a theater for years. I don't know. I honestly don't know if I can remember the last time I enjoyed myself that much.
Oh yeah, I mean, I was barreled over laughing, and that never happens.
No, I think the last sci-fi movie that even came close to that would probably be Galaxy Quest.
Yeah. Oh my, yeah.
And it's a classic.
That brings back memories. Yeah, for sure.
Well, I remember reading just this morning that Chris Pratt actually studied Han Solo. That character played by Harrison Ford, and Michael J. Fox's character in Back to the Future as a mashup to be the Star-Lord. That's where he drew his inspiration.
Wow, now that you mention that, I could totally see it. Yeah, I definitely got Han Solo out of it, for sure. There's no doubt in my mind, but that's interesting. Michael J. Fox, I could see that. There's sort of that manic, sort of boyish feel to it.
Right.
Yeah, and then sort of taking the more cocky approach with Han Solo. It was great. It was absolutely great. I think they cast it perfectly, and I'm really excited to see the next one and see where they take it. That's another thing. It stands alone in the Marvel Universe. It does not connect. You have Thanos. That's about the extent of the connection between that and the other Marvel movies.
Right.
Which I love that. They didn't have to tie it into any of the other movies, which could limit them. They had their own universe, and they're going to play around with that and expand it, and they're killing it, man. I mean, Marvel's got, the next 20 years? I think up to like 2028, they've got their entire cinematic universe mapped out, and I don't see DC catching up anytime soon. Unfortunately, I am a DC fan, but I am so excited for whatever comes next, especially Avengers 2.
Me too. And did you catch that teaser at the very end of the credits as well?
The Howard the Duck,
yes.
Was it?
I'm glad that you picked it up. Yeah.
Oh,
what did you think of that? What's your impression of that?
Definitely made me feel old, I will admit that. But I did appreciate it. It was a wonderful homage, for sure.
Now, there's some talk that they're actually going to be doing a Howard the Duck movie.
Really?
Yeah. I don't know how legitimate it is, but I was a fan of the original. What would you think of a reboot?
You know what, man? At this point, it's inevitable. There's going to be a reboot of everything. Yeah. And in one way, I sort of disdain Hollywood for that, but in another way, it is bringing these things that we loved so much to a new generation.
I agree.
Like these next 3 Star Wars are going to define Star Wars for a brand new group of people. And as much as I did not care for the last trilogy, it did that as well. And then you sort of reverse engineer from there and introduce them to the original, and then see how everything ties in. Howard the Duck reboot, totally. I mean, again, the movie never took itself seriously to begin with, so
Right.
I don't see it being detrimental to it whatsoever. Yeah, it's going to make me laugh, and it's going to keep Marvel going. Yeah, I'm all for it, for sure.
I would like that as well. I think that it might be a nice pit stop for Marvel as well. Aside from the Guardians, which I hope that it is at least a trilogy, if not, a continuation with the quality that they put out in that first one.
Agreed. Yeah, and who doesn't want to see a dancing Groot?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
That as soon as that scene happened, man, I was like, there is going to be a toy line for this within the next month. I guarantee.
Oh, no kidding.
I think it's already come out.
I can only wait. Well, I really appreciate you taking time out of your day a second time to talk to us here at Odd Reality Radio, Ryan. I would like to leave our listeners with any way that they can get a hold of you.
Oh, yeah, of course, man. They can always find me on Facebook, just Ryan Sprague. I have a website dedicated to all of my UFO research, and that is somewhereintheskies.com. They can find out more about my work there. And if they want to follow the progression of the Rendlesham play, it's facebook.com/Rendlesham play. Other than that, man, I am staying busy working on my movies and the book. And if anyone ever wants to contact me, if they've had an experience, a sighting, I'm always looking for new cases to look into for the book or just for my own personal research. We're all in this together, try to find answers. So please feel free to contact me anytime.
Absolutely. And once again, that's somewhereintheskies.com. And you also have a personal page, too, for some of your other work along the lines of Reverie Lane and things like that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's just ryandsprague.com. That's more of my down-to-earth work, if you will. And yeah, they can definitely check that out. Yeah, I've got both websites running in tandem with all my creative endeavors. And please, check it out. Let me know what you think. And yeah, constantly creating, man.
Well, thanks again, Ryan, for taking time out of the obviously busy schedule of yours. And I hope to hear from you in the near future. I'll be in touch about those orbs for sure.
Yes, please do. And if anyone out there has any experiences and they want to come forward, again, they can contact me any of the ways we just mentioned. And my absolute pleasure, man. Thank you so much for having me. It's people like you that are moving the field forward. And I could not be more excited to work with you and with the others. And thank you so much for having me.
Excellent. Likewise, brother. Take care.
You as well.
Alrighty. Thanks again, Ryan. And once again, for those of you interested in finding out more about Ryan and his work, it's somewhereintheskies.com, as well as ryandsprague.com, and that's SPRAGUE. For those of you interested in finding out more about Odd Reality Radio or sending us an email, you can do so at info@oddrealityradio.com, or visit the website, which is currently located at bit.do/oddrealityradio. And we've added a voicemail link at the bottom, so if you'd like to leave us a voicemail, please feel free to do so. Until next time, take care and continue to investigate life through the lens of possibility.